know this music, Deb.
Hey, welcome to the Passionate Pundits, everyone. I'm Deb St.Hilaire, and this right here is...
This is dr-juliadeer.
How do you know this music?
Because this music was like totally in when I was a kid. I'm dating myself.
I bet you're a cheap date.
I don't know about that. Although back in the 80s, you know, you give me a can of hairspray and some neon shorts and I'll call it good. It was
oh
good.
My gosh, you're funny. Oh.
So welcome to the show, Passionate Pundits. Good to be here.
It
again.
is good to be here. I always look forward to these days.
Yeah, we want to talk about health and natural healing and getting people to take charge of their own bodies and their own lives and
be their own advocates.
That's right.
Yes.
That's what it's all about. It's all about empowering them.
It is.
So that's what we're here for, and that's how I treat my practice when people come in. That's definitely one of the things I want to get across to them is that they are their own best advocate. And, you know, don't let people push them around when they know something's wrong and they go in and they try to get treated and somebody acts like, well, it's all in your head, or look for someone else, because all that person's really saying is that they can't figure it out. So either you can figure it out or you can find somebody to help you figure it out, but always keep looking because there's always an answer.
Right. And I've gone through that with relatives that doctors told them that it was all in their head and put them on Quaaludes and Valiums,
right.
And later found out that it was a simple diagnostic mistake on their part, that if they would have gotten their freaking medical books out, they would have found what it was.
Right. And not only that, but if they were willing to admit that they didn't understand, they don't know, they're not the one. They're not going to be the one. It's okay to admit that and to send somebody on. I personally have referred to other chiropractors. There, you know, I would love to say I'm 100% getting people on their way, but I'm not. I'm probably about 80 to 90%, which in my mind is pretty darn good. But you know, for that 10% that I can't help for whatever reason, there are other chiropractors out there that are awesome that do different techniques and different styles than I do, and I have referred out. And I've referred back to medical doctors if I think
that's
it's a medical
what I was going to say. Yep, and
yeah.
I think that's really good. And would a medical doctor refer out to a chiropractor? Very few.
Actually, I will tell you that over the past 10 years, I have been a witness to the change in the climate of that, and I have been a part of it, which makes me happy. I have very good relationships with all the medical doctors up in Huron County, and we definitely communicate back and forth, and I have had them call me on my personal phone and say, hey, we share this patient, and I really want your opinion on this.
Nice.
And, yeah, it's wonderful. It's fabulous because that's really what it's all about. It's about helping each other manage that patient's care. You know, that patient's wellness and well-being is what comes first. And as long as the medical practitioner has that in mind, they have my utmost respect.
Really, ego set aside, it's the patient that should come first. Mm-hmm. You know, I had, I think I might have told you this story years ago, quite a while ago. I had a chiropractor that I went to that went to the same school as you, mm-hmm. and he had a brother that was a medical doctor. And I went to another doctor because I was having these horrible neck pains, and I went to two, and they wanted to put a cadaver bone in my neck. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And the two brothers, the medical doctor and the chiropractor, worked on me for about 6 months. And I had to take some muscle relaxers.
Co-managed you.
Yes. And taught me how to put myself in, because I was in a car accident when I was a teenager. Showed me how to put myself in traction at night because mm-hmm. my arm was like numb, you know, like sciatica in mm-hmm. my arm.
A compressed nerve.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And within 3 months, I was fine. And
isn't that beautiful?
Knock on wood, I've not had another problem.
Yeah. And, you know, that leads me to my first topic.
Which is,
ego aside, the main thing that we should be teaching our children and teaching them about is their own health and their own well-being and their own bodies and how to manage that. And, you know, just like what you were talking about, if more medical doctors and chiropractors came together for the sake of the patient, we would have phenomenal results.
Phenomenal, right.
And I believe that should start in the classroom when they're little. I mean, I think I would love to see across the United States a class in elementary teaching kids about their bodies and about their health and about their anatomy and what can they do if they have this pain and what does this typically mean if it's in this area and what spot can they rub reflexology wise to help this organ function better. They are little sponges. They will pick up on that so quick. At that age,
right.
You could teach them and think how many millions of dollars in healthcare costs that would save in the long run.
Well, I can't even imagine. They could do my coloring book like I had from nutrition school.
They would love that.
They would.
They would love that. Like, this is kind of weird, but
we won't be surprised.
Right, because I always tell stories of my crazy family. This is why Patrick won't let us have a reality show. Because Patrick's like, no, they will want to come home with you eventually, and this is not working. This is not going to work. So, but anyways, I'm going to still tell you all my crazy stories. So, I mean, this isn't really crazy, but some people might cringe. Okay, so JP, my oldest, he was extremely precocious as a child. I mean, he was so smart and just so spot on. You know, could have conversations with you. I've mentioned it before.
Yes. At 2, he could debate a point and win. You know, you're debating with his 2-year-old and you realize he has valid points and arguments and you're like, geez, I got to give in to this kid. He's smarter than a whip. And it's so funny because later on, school counselors and people like that always told us, you shouldn't tell him how smart he is. Why?
Because they said he will take advantage of that and he will have power over you as the parent. And I'm like, I don't care if he knows how smart he is. I think it's cool.
It is.
When I got to ask him how to program my VCR, I mean, no, by that time it was probably PlayStation or something. How do I get on the video game? But anyway, so when he was little, his favorite book was my color atlas of anatomy.
Oh, isn't that funny?
And this, I mean, people, this was not pictures like cartoons. This was not drawings. This was literal anatomy splayed out in beautiful Technicolor so you could see every vein, every artery, every nerve, everything. It was the large version color atlas with photographed pictures of anatomy. And he loved it. And he would sit there and he would just gawk. He would just take it all in and just look at it. And I'm not talking like sexual parts or anything. Right. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like a heart.
Right.
Like cut, dissected and splayed open. And he would just go. He would love it.
Huh.
He thought it was beautiful and he thought it was amazing. And he would just sit there and just stare at those. And then he'd turn the page slowly and he'd look at the next page. And he could sit there probably for a good hour and a half.
Wow, isn't that something?
Looking at this book of anatomy. So I know he's going to do something great anatomy-wise someday. I don't know what it's going to be. Probably for him, it's going to be more like, he's a writer, so he'll probably write some screenplays, and it'll be like, the next Grey's Anatomy or something, or ER or something.
Or it could go the other way and be Edgar Allan Poe.
It could be, and in fact, that's funny too, because we got called in several times over the years to these counseling, meetings. Your son had a report due, and we're a little concerned. It's very Stephen King-ish. And I'm like, that's because he's super smart and he's good at that. So that's what he likes. But they didn't understand, that was when all the stuff started happening with everybody being very hyper about, kids bringing knives. Not that he ever brought knives to school, but I'm just saying, like, anything that had to do with that, it was right after like some of the school shootings and stuff had started up. All of that had happened, so they were all concerned because my son is super dark in his writing style, but I wasn't concerned because he's JP. I mean, when he was 14, he stood up in front of a crowd for me on my birthday. They were having this spring sing, and he was decked out in black. And he had his hair in his face, and he had his cut-off gloves on, and he stood up, and all these people in a small town, I won't mention what town, was sitting in the audience just looking at him, and it was all older people, really, because that's who was at the spring sing fling thing. And they're all sitting there looking, And they're like, oh, my gosh, what head-banging, screaming music is this kid going to sing? And he started crooning. He did a 40s crooning song.
Oh, I love it. Bless his heart.
And, oh, my gosh, they just fell in love with him. All their mouths dropped open. Their eyes got big as saucers. It was so cool. I looked around. The audience was all just flabbergasted. That's a word that they would have used.
Yes.
We were flabbergasted.
That's a good word, though.
I love that word.
Flabbergasted.
Yeah. I'm always dating myself with my words.
You know, flabbergasted is a word that crosses all
generations,
boundaries.
does it?
Yes.
I bet you if I asked my 20-something-year-old receptionist what flabbergasted means, she would just be like, I don't know. I've never heard it. Yes, there's a lot of things like that. She's young. I mean, they're young. They don't hear these things. It's so funny. My mom, she's really old. Like, I don't care to say that. My mom's old. I'm the baby of the family, and she started late in life. So I think she had me when she was like 37, 38. So she's getting up there, you know. So I was exposed to all these weird words and like weird, funny things. But anyways, the whole thing about it is that my son was so interested in this color atlas, and he just was taking it all in. And he would ask me, he would say, Mom, how does this work? And what is this? And I would tell him and just explain to him how it would work. And he just took it all in like a sponge. And, you know, he will tell people, he will tell his friends, you know, if they are suffering from this or that or a headache or, you know, their left shoulder hurts, he's like, oh, you might want to get your pancreas checked or, you know, maybe you should eat some celery or, you know, you could. And that's all just stuff that he just learned as he was growing up because that's what Mom did when he had an upset stomach. This is what he ate. This is what he drank. This, you know, he just learned it as he grew up. And he's really healthy.
Wait till you hear my topic today. You're going to crack up. Keep
I
going.
Love that.
So, but you know, that's so very true. They say that is the best time to learn new things. It's the best time to learn a second language.
Yeah. Their minds are so elastic that they can just
and the retention
expand.
At that point is phenomenal.
It's great. So think if we had all these people who came up and learned about their body and learned about what this pain meant and what that pain meant, how much that would cut down on visits to emergency rooms, visits to the doctor. You know, I mean, that scares some people because, I mean, let's just face it, that's a profession. I mean, that's a money-driven profession. So, you know, I realize and I understand that it's sort of threatening to people in that profession to say, oh, we're going to create a bunch of people in this country who don't need you. You know, so that's a little threatening.
But you know
to people,
what? With the insurance rates the way they are, and people can't afford to go to the doctor, and they don't know what's going on, it would make so much sense.
Put that money,
you know how there's Sunday
into
school?
The classroom, like
I think you should start a school.
But I think that if, you know, the government puts some of the money toward, you know, for health care or whatever, reform
into
or all
learning.
of that, into learning and into creating these classes for these children to learn about their bodies, it would just I just think it would save so much in the long run.
Well, it would, and it would not only save so much, it would make people, like, as they grew older, as they grew up, they would be able to help people in turn.
Absolutely.
So it would turn into, it wouldn't matter so much if you had really, really good insurance or not. You just need insurance to cover catastrophic occurrences.
Right.
Which is the way it's going.
And that is true. I mean, it's true. There is a gap. But, you know, I just don't, I don't know. I think that we're set up for failure in the healthcare field. It's so daunting to me when people come into my office and they've never been to a chiropractor and they have no idea why they're there. And one of their best friends told them, if you don't go over there, I'm going to drag you over there kicking and screaming. And, you know, they get there and they're just
that happens
like,
a lot, actually.
Yeah, they're just like deer in the headlights. Like, I've never been exposed to this. I have no idea what the philosophy is behind this. Are you going to crack me? Are you going to crack me? Are you going to crack me? You know? And it's like they don't understand the basis of it and the background of it. And if they would just learn a little bit of that. Like, I can remember in elementary school, the dentist coming in. the dentist or the hygienist coming in. And they had their big set of teeth, and they had their big toothbrush, and they're scrubbing their teeth with their big toothbrush, and we were all into it because we're like, that is so cool.
Look at that big toothbrush.
Yeah, look at those big teeth. I want to scrub those teeth, It's like, it's so cool to watch, and you're like, wow, and the kids are enthralled, and, where's that for chiropractic? Where's that for,